What's going on? This is Brett Snodgrass with another episode of the Iron Deep podcast with my good buddy, co-host, Mr. Michael Stansbury in the house. What's going on, Michael?
What is going on, Mr. Snodgrass? How are you, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, man. It's been an awesome journey with you so far. So I guess I'll just kick off this question. You've been able to host quite a few podcasts now. You've been interview some guests. We've been on several times. So how are you enjoying it? What's it like? You getting the voice back? The announcer.
Yeah, the voice is so the announcer voice never goes away. You can turn it on at any time. You have to use it sparingly. Sometimes people think it's obnoxious. So sometimes you have to dial it down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to always be there. But I've enjoyed mostly about this is actually doing some of the research on the people that I'm talking to beforehand, and either reading their books or hearing more about their story, and then be able to just put that story out on a podcast about their life. There are some things that I've learned about some good friends that I've had on here that I didn't know about their story. So it's always been interesting to kind of ask deeper questions about events in their lives that have shaped them. And it's interesting because you can see in real time sometimes that that they're actually realizing some deeper things, as well as they rehash the story of their lives. So I've enjoyed that part of the podcast. So yeah, that's been very, very enjoyable. And again, getting to learn new things. I think one of the things that as maybe businessmen, entrepreneurs, and we have to grow in our faith. And what helps growth is hearing stories of other people's valleys and how they got through them, and what God has done for them to draw them out. So
I love that.
It's a beautiful thing.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, there's so many times that I come onto a podcast and maybe something happened in my morning that just kind of threw me off, and maybe I was discouraged, and I interview someone, I get to hear their story, and I walk away just feeling encouraged, uplifted, empowered. And I just, so many times, and I can take what they told me and I implement it too. So there's so many, connections and resources or books that I've read. Just helps me so much on this podcast. So thanks again for being just a huge part of the Iron Deep podcast moving forward, man. Just appreciate you so much. And today's episode, guys, we're really going to talk to Michael. I'm going to be interviewing him a little bit more because he's gone through a lot of transitions in his life. We all have seasons of our life, and we start things and we get really excited about starting something new, and the unknown of that. There's some nervousness with that, and he has started some things in his life, but then there's also seasons of endings where maybe doors are shut or closed, whether it's with your family. And he has recently transitioned to one of his daughters to move out of the home into college, to kind of move on. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. He's also, got out of a business venture that he was in. So we're talking a lot of entrepreneurs and business guys. So we're going to ask him the questions of, hey, when is time to move on? How do you know when it's time? So we're going to talk about this a little bit today, guys. So transitions, seasons, when it's time to transition, when it's time to start or to stop a season in your life. So Michael, let's just talk about family first. You're a huge family man. We've had you on the podcast a couple of times now talking about family, fun with your family, leading your family. And so I know family is huge in your life. Part of your core values, you're always talking about your family. And now you're into this transition of your son works with you, but he is older now. I think he's 21 years old. Your daughter has just transitioned out of the home. So let's just talk about that. What has this experience been like for you as a dad, as a leader of your home? And talk to us about that, and even about your wife as well.
Yeah. So, well, first in real time, as you're having kids, and you'll hear this, especially as your younger kids, oh, don't blink. And then then it happens to you. And so I have a 21-year-old, doesn't make any sense to me because, I know time goes by, and I know how time works. but still you wake up, you have a 21-year-old, and I don't feel like I'm the age that I am. So, but reality is this, and now you transition from, you're still his dad, you're still his father, but you're more of a coach in his life. And then he works for me as well, which I love. I love my family. I think families are the best. I think that, a lot of problems that we have stem from, hey, not building up that family unit. And it really starts with the guy, the father. And so humbly, I try to do my best to lead our family. And let me tell you something, I've dropped the ball a lot, but what's great about, that is, I try to surround myself with other men in the church that, that I can go to and say, hey, I did this. And they're like, yeah, that was dumb. I just want us to try this. And so, being a father is like anything, is like you try stuff, you read God's word, and you try to have the word have its effect on you and learn from wisdom. And so here's what I know is that it happens very quickly. And then when they grow up, you have to change your strategy. You change your game. I can't, even though my son does live with me, we have rules in the house, and he's respectful and he does everything that we ask him to do. He's not 16 years old anymore. So I'm not going to parent him like I would a 16-year-old. He comes to us, which is great, with, hey, this is happening. And it's just it's a really cool thing to be able to coach him and have that relationship with him. So I think that we've accomplished this goal, right? After 18, he didn't just leave and ignore us, and he's not going the prodigal way. He's within the fold. But we got to be, again, mindful that we don't want him to be like the older brother in that story. So it's been like, I love it. And it's interesting because when he was 16 or 17, I would tell my wife, Deidre, I said, heck, when he's 18, he needs to move out and needs to do his own thing. And then what happened is, COVID happened, and all sorts of different things kind of shaped, and other people shaped the way that I thought about that. And what we came to the conclusion was, if he's going to be responsible and he's going to follow the rules of the house, he can stay here up to this point. And so that point is like, if once he wants to get a house, buy a house, or get married, we're okay with that. Now, the 18-year-old girl, my daughter Caitlin, she did move to Chattanooga, which is about 5.5 hours away from Memphis, and that was a new experience for us. And so it has been very interesting. So we're about 2.5 weeks since that event happened, and it was everything that people talked about. You're going to be sad. The house is going to be different. We have 4 kids here, and so one is gone, and there's definitely like something missing from the house. It is something actually tangible. She's got a great relationship with her younger brother, Braden, and he was in her room yesterday, just hanging out in her room with her cat. And talking about, this is what he was talking about. This is the greatest thing. He's like, hey, when she gets back, what we need to do is, I'm going to do this. I'm going to get a package of Oreos. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, and I'm going to take all the Oreos out. I'm going to take all the cream out and put toothpaste in it. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. And I'm like, great idea. He goes, that's how we show love in our house.
That's a winner.
That's how we show love. Yeah,
that's a great idea. Put that on the board. We're gonna execute that out.
Yes, and that's how. But they always prank each other in love, and it's hilarious. And they both have this great sense of humor about it, so they don't get mad. They just go, okay, all right. So that's what you're doing.
I'm gonna get you. Yeah,
I'm gonna get you. So that cool. was fun last night, as he was kind of plotting. But it is, so to give you like, hey, what's it like? I was talking to my wife last night. She's like, we're going to see her in a couple of weeks. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be great. But it just hasn't really hasn't hit us like violently yet. Because, and I think one of the things is that we just have so many, there's a lot of people in the house. So there's a lot of things to distract us. There's work, we got to take the kids to school and their sports and stuff like that. So I'd imagine though, if she was my only daughter, that this would be. I have a buddy of mine. His name is Jeff, and his only daughter is out of school, and he's just wrecked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I totally understand. I understand and get that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what family life is like right now in our household.
Yeah.
It's still super fun, but there is something tangible missing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny when you talk to certain individuals, because I have some friends that are empty nesters and they love it. They're like, oh, this is awesome. We get to do things and go on date nights and travel, and we don't have to. You're right, yeah, something. But other people are wrecked when it comes down to that. And I just, we do a lot of family dinners, so I guess I would just imagine, what it would be like if there was a chair missing, for example. Even though, right, she's going to be coming home and visiting, and so. This is obviously an ending, maybe a signify, as you are parents. So, you mentioned some of the feelings around that. Like, was there any feelings of relief? Like, I guess so. Some people, some people as parents might feel, I've made it. They've made it. I've been waiting for this moment. I've raised them up, hopefully in a positive way, and they can make their own decisions. And then now, there's a feeling of relief, right? There's maybe a feeling of nostalgia that you talked about, nervousness. Like, what maybe were some of the feelings and emotions that you're kind of going through?
So there was, I would say that, I don't know if relief is the right word, but it was just like, here's the biggest thing that we were worried about is like, how is she going to be homesick in a couple of weeks? And the answer is no, she hasn't been. She's and the great thing about today is, right, you can FaceTime and you talk a lot and text a lot, and so and we, she lets us know, hey, I'm doing this today, I'm excited about this, and I've met this person, and so she's meeting new people, and that is more, I guess, the relief is like, hey, she's made some connections there. And for us, which was big, is like, when I went to college, my mom was excited because there was a Catholic church right across the street from the dorm, right? You know how many times I visited that Catholic church? She was excited about that. She was like, "Oh, Michael, St. Thomas is right here across the street.
This is the great school."
I don't hardly ever graced that the church, but here's the truth. The truth is like, she visited a church on Sunday and visited another different church on Sunday to try it out. And so that was like, oh, this is good. Not prompt. I mean, now she's in charge. She's her free agent. She has been since she's turns an adult. And so that gave us, some relief or some encouragement. And then, she's like, she would text Deidre, hey, here's the website of the church. Check them out. What do you think? What do you think about their core values? And so that was that's
cool. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
So those are things that are encouraging.
Yeah. Most of the time, I think I was talking to someone yesterday, is when people graduate from school, high school, or they leave the home, they also leave the church.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a typical thing. I started reading a book. I went to this camp called Dad Camp. I took my son. They gave us this book. It's by Annie Stanley. Really recommend it. I've started reading it. It's called Parenting, so very common title, but it's called Parenting, Getting It Right. And the thing that they're really going into is, what is it? So like, what are you trying to get right? And, just coming up with maybe a mission or some sort of core values or whatever. But, one of his things that they really focused in on is when they were raising their children was, after their children are gone, they want to raise up children that want to be around them when they don't have to be. That was like one of their goals. So their children will come home like they want to be home when they don't have to be home. And it sounds like your family really has that great dynamic. Like, your son, he's still at home. And he doesn't have to be at home, and your daughter wants to come home. So I don't know, but have you guys thought through that? Like, a goal or what is it for maybe you guys when you're raising up your children?
Well, so no, it's interesting. You read that book. I read this book called The Household and the War of the Cosmos about a year ago, and I reread it last week. And basically what it talks about in scripture is this idea of the household. And back in, for the longest time, up until in America, we had the Industrial Revolution, the home or the household was where all the economies were. That's how you did everything. You learned in your house, you made stuff and you sold stuff from your household to other households. And that's how societies ran. And when, pre-industrial revolution in most societies, I won't say in every society, but if you were an empty nester, that was kind of like you were frowned upon in culture, because you wanted your family and your, not just your nuclear family, but you wanted your whole family at unit close by. And so it's been interesting that sometimes when we read scripture, we don't have that context, and a lot of it is lost or misinterpreted. So because quite frankly, my wife's, we have a girl that's 5 hours away. That still kind of disrupts us. We're like, she's not 30 minutes away. She's 5 hours away. So if she needed something quick, we can't get there quick. Right. So I would prefer that my children stay close by us wherever that is. I have this, so I've changed my whole business philosophy is this. And I've told my daughter this too, regarding college. I would rather her want to start building a business. And I would invest in that. And that's my preference for her to do that instead of going to college, because I think she can learn a lot there. And we would help her. We would put the resources behind that. Yeah. And that's been conveyed to her many times, but she chose what she wanted to choose. My son, on the other hand, understands like, this idea of, when you talk to people and just ask them what their definition of wealth is, well, my definition of wealth has changed. Wealth is actually my children. My children are wealth, not in the sense that, hey, I'm going to take advantage of them and make them my slaves or slave labor. No, I'm going to help them develop their skills and to work out in this economy, whatever that looks like. So my son, I want to expose him to a lot of different people and a lot of different ideas, so that he can be creative and create businesses that solve problems, and then do whatever he wants to do with that. And so my ideas have changed over that by some rather interesting influences. And I haven't codified it yet. It's on my vision to have my family close by, but that's what we would prefer. And that's kind of how I'm tailoring all the business or economic decisions I do as a family, to think about their future, and not in the, hey, you're going to inherit a bunch of money. No, I want you to inherit also not just assets, but I want you to inherit like good ability to grow wealth in a way that honors God, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. Yeah, I've never even thought about that. I mean, I want people to hear this because most of the time parents want their kids to go to high school to get good grades, maybe go to college, get a good job, and you've actually went the other way, which I think people are really starting to think outside of the box when it comes to college, is you say, hey, instead of this $50,000 or $100,000, I will invest into a business. That's just very interesting. Haven't ever thought about that. That's a cool thing. That's awesome. Well, cool, man. Well, I know this is a transition in your family. This is also I'm going to turn the page a little bit, transition in kind of your business ventures. So you're a real estate investor in Tennessee, and you buy and sell a lot of homes, flip some houses. You got into a venture, I'm not sure the time frame of it, a couple years ago, of part owning a title company. But then recently you have decided to step out of that. And I'm always just really, really interested in, because I know you were really excited about that. What is this going to look like? And then decided to step out of that, maybe close the door and close the loop on your involvement with that. So can you tell us about that? And I want you just to think about Because most of the time I see people, they've put in so much time and resources into something that they get stuck. They never want to let it go because you're like,
Mm-hmm. Right.
their philosophy is I put so much money or time or energy into this that I'm going to make it work. And sometimes it's to their own detriment or their family's sacrifice too. So talk to us about this venture with you, and why did you decide to step out?
Well, so this is 100% of Mike having a little bit of a shiny object syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
and a little bit of a hey, this would be cool to let people know that hey, I own a title company. Now, the circumstances leading up to it were pretty neat. It seemed like it was a good thing to do. The title company that I use, and I still use them, they were having some ownership. The owner of the title company was having some health issues, and then one of the people that worked there was had a little bit of a risk averse. But this person really ran that company, did the operations really well. The other person that was interested in possibly being a partner was the person that went and got sales, and so they were really good at getting relationships with people to go out there and close with the title company. And then there was me, and I thought I would also. So I thought, okay, this is what I can bring to the table. I have a lot of influence, I thought, on the real estate community, and I get them all to close at Edco Title.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we all kind of brought to the table. Well, there's two parts to this. Number one, I did not really do really good due diligence on what that meant, as far as what I was committing to as getting business over there. What I never did is I say, hey, I'll just go out there and get business.
Mm-hmm.
I never defined how much that was, what that looked like. It was, it's like kind of not having the specific attainable goal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, I'm going to go get 3 to 5 extra closings a month,
Mm-hmm.
because I also had a full time. I'm a real estate investor, and I love what I do. And I thought this could be like a little backpack.
Yeah, and it goes hand in hand. You're like, oh, I'm a real estate investor. I work with other investors. I'm just gonna bring their business
Right.
over here, and it's not like it's a car wash versus real estate, right? So it makes
Right.
sense.
Yep. And so I thought it would happen pretty fast, and it did not. And then I don't know if you guys know, but like last year, this is probably 18 months. The interest rates went way crazy, and sales went down, and so there was a 30 or 40% drop in the amount of business that everybody was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so so we had the same clients, but we had 30% less business year over year. And my task was to go out there and get more business. Well, over a year, I didn't do that great. The other part, and so that was on me. And both of the other partners were, we were having meetings and things like that, and things were getting, there was some, just tension that I was the cause of, because the business wasn't coming in like it should, because I overpromised. I overpromised and didn't realize that there's a lot more runway. It's not just you take your friend over here that you've been, and like he loves this title company too. So you're going to have to manage that relationship and say, yeah, I'll bring some business over to you, but you guys gotta do your part, and I've got to get to know you more. So it's definitely a longer, it just took a lot longer than I thought it would to generate the business. The other part of it, and this is the kind of the most important thing, I think both partners were great. They were honest, and they're both good people. But there is this one of the things I clearly ignored is the equally yoked aspect of it. And so when the Bible talks about in your marriage, you guys got to be on the same page as far as who God is and who Christ is. And I ignored that in this business relationship. Now I'm trying to figure out, sometimes I do deals with people, and I'll do, I'll buy a property with somebody, and it works out great. and maybe that applies, and maybe I need to filter everything I do through that on those as well.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do it here.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, I thought I actually processed it. I was like, well, 2 out of 3 of us are equally yoked, so that should be able to overcome
Mm-hmm.
everything. And that's just not the case.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't the case. Now I think, but the main reason why it failed was because I overpromised and
Mm-hmm.
underdelivered, and I was, I you're just you only have so much energy to put things behind.
Yeah.
And the Mem Fixer Upper, my flipping company, was not at a point where I could hand that off to
Mm-hmm.
anybody to run.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened is like you described when you were describing it, like the stress started getting to me. Well, my
Mm-hmm.
wife started saying things. You think this is worth it? Yeah, yeah, it'll be worth it later on. It'll be
Mm-hmm.
worth it. We'll figure this out. It'll get better. Then I started losing sleep,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, if I just took the resources that I'm putting on this back on where it's supposed to go, which is my flipping business, then I wouldn't have any of these problems, and I'd have a lot more time
Mm-hmm.
freedom.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, what am I doing? And
Mm-hmm.
and and then, but again, that took like a week to process when I was having those thoughts, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna make it easy for them to say yes to this and just exit out of the business. So I just went to them and said, hey, let's make this as easy as possible, and I try to make the terms as favorable to them, because what I was more focused on is getting my time back and
Mm-hmm.
getting um, any kind of stress off of me, so I can put energy into other things that were going to have a return, if that made sense.
Right. No, that's good. Yeah. And so it's just you took it to the filters. Some things were happening. You were losing sleep, and obviously stress started mounting up. And and I think as business owners, you have this loss of freedom. And then you start to ask yourself, is this really worth it? And you obviously had this other thing going well, right? Already. So you're like, hey, why don't I just take my energy and put it over here? So what's this emotionally been like for you, to get excited about something, to think it's going to go successful with your involvement and it doesn't go like you think? What is that like, kind of stepping out? Was there a period of, was it a relief? Was it like I failed? Like what is
Yeah.
what is this like for you?
Well, so I think that, I don't know if this is a negative. My wife is very, very, Deidre is very intuitive, as all wives are. I mean, they're just incredible. But one thing I think that one thing that is interesting is how I can move on pretty quickly, like turn the page.
Right.
Like I can turn the page pretty quickly,
Mm-hmm.
and I try to do it in a healthy way.
Mm-hmm.
But I did. I was upset for a day, but then I realized, okay, all right, let's let's write everything out,
Mm-hmm.
like all the positives, and then it's the story that you tell yourself. I could
Mm-hmm.
tell myself that story. I did fail.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I will tell you, and that entrepreneurs, if you don't fail, then you're never going to be a successful entrepreneur. If you don't misstep, trip up, if you don't face plant,
Mm-hmm.
um, then you're not. I don't think you're learning. You want to avoid, right? Just you want to avoid the worst of the worst.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like I was avoiding the worst by exiting. And so it was more, when I process it that way, it was a relief.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how do you do that, and maintain relationships? Because one of the things I didn't want to do is, I wanted to be very, very clear and honest to the other two people involved. Like, hey, here's why I'm doing it, and there's nothing that, this is on me, and how do I do this as gracefully as possible and
Mm-hmm.
keep relationships?
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough part.
Yeah.
I know some good men that were equally yoked in a partnership, but it went bad,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't have a relationship anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to avoid that. And so you have to make that decision as well, which is, I'm going to do this with as much humility as possible to keep these relationships and not be bitter.
Yeah.
And that's hard.
It is hard.
It's hard for anyone not to be bitter about something, especially if you think, well, I know I didn't do this right, and I do this right, but they didn't do this either, or they, the focus of this podcast, I could have put the focus on what they didn't do. But at the end of the day, when I look back at it, I was like, no, it's me. It's me. This was all me. And let's figure out a way to keep the relationships, as much as best as possible.
Yeah, no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks for sharing. Again, this episode really is just about seasons. It's about beginning new seasons, ending seasons, when to move on, when to close the doors on certain things in your life. And one of the things I just want to wrap up with this last kind of final question is, you said that Michael kind of had this shiny object syndrome. And I want to dive into that just a little bit, because I think we as entrepreneurs, we always kind of have that. And I heard a quote, I'm not sure who it was, but I had this mentor tell me this one time, but he said, they did a survey with business owners. They said, what was like your number one mistake that you made, throughout your business? And they own multiple businesses. And like most of them said, like one of their biggest mistakes was that they thought because they were successful in this certain business that they could be successful in any business. And that was, and I could see that. So it's me, like, hey, I've done some success with real estate. Now, I could go open up a restaurant or a coffee shop, and because it's a completely different business, but that's so they said one of the biggest mistakes is just because they're successful in one business, they think that they can be successful in any business. So we also talked about opportunity or distraction. So talk to us about, Michael's shiny object syndrome. Do you have anything that you think through when you have opportunities come at you? Because you obviously have other business things or properties or real estate things or opportunities, even if it's just inviting you to whatever, on vacation.
Play with something.
Whatever.
Yes.
Do you have anything that you think through, like, is this an opportunity or is this a distraction in my life?
Right. Well, so it's funny. So as I was trying to get this business off the ground, I was exposed to some other, I was re-exposed to the idea of, hey, you know what you want is you really want a boring business. And a boring business is not shiny. A boring business. And what I don't mean by boring is not necessarily exciting, but now you have if you've done something like we have for so long, we know that there are going to be peaks and valleys, but we know that we have a better idea of what to expect around the corner. With new businesses like this one, even though I thought I know how to do this, I couldn't see around the corner. And I think that if you have a boring business, you can do a 360 and see around the corner in any economy. And you can see how things really work. But if you think that hey, I can choose this vertical over here and it's the same thing, well, maybe not. Maybe it's not anything like what you're doing at all. So, but this idea, so the filter is this boring? So, is this boring? So, you know what? So I've got a self-storage deal in Jackson, and it's boring. It's beautiful, and it's boring. It's not exciting. It's some metal buildings that people rent out to put their old vinyl records in or whatever.
That's funny because like my favorite part of the real estate business is when we kind of seller finance a property, and that's a very boring business because after the deal's done, like we get our checks, but there's no relationship really, and that's just all it is. It's just counting numbers and doing amortization schedules, which is not fun. So.
Right.
But it's my favorite part because it's like that it's a good business. So
that's a good business. So the filter is this boring? So I read this book called Bumpers. It was a good book, and it helps to stay in your lane, like what bumpers are in a plain bowling alley. Well, in a I'm not a good bowler, so sometimes when the kids are bowling, I just leave those bumpers up.
I love that. That's fun. That's like my wife. So that's cool. Well, that's a good. So your filter is this a boring type of business? And I'll just kind of wrap it up with this. I had a guy on the podcast. Oh, this is a while ago, but he was a basketball performance coach, and he went and watched Kobe Bryant play, and Kobe Bryant would work out in the mornings at 4 a.m. and this performance coach wanted to go watch him practice. And when he watched him practice, it wasn't anything flashy. It was basically doing very basic ball handling drills that are, you might see in an elementary, right? And he said, "Wow, man, like that was, it's pretty boring to watch you do this." And he just said, "Yeah, I gotta stick to the basics. You gotta get back to the basics." And that's even one of my business philosophies now, because some of the tasks that I've been doing is like, man, this is kind of boring. Like I've done this 2,000 or whatever 5,000 times, and I'm like, this is just boring, analyzing deals, but it's like this is. Yeah, it's good. What makes the money?
That's what makes the money. You got to make offers every day.
That's
and if
right.
you do, guess what happens? It's
That's
hilarious.
Right. That's right.
Good. I love
That's
it.
funny. I've been pounding my team with which is very basic, but it's like, you know what? If we make more offers, we get more PAs, more purchase agreements, right?
That's it.
I think, yeah. It's pretty equal. It's a math problem. So awesome, man. Well, thanks for visiting with us today, Michael Stansbury, on just turning the page of family business, knowing when to move on. Appreciate you, buddy. This is a wrap with the Iron Deep Podcast. So thanks you.